You know what? You're also man enough to admit that we need to be investing our dollars.
Oh, yeah.
We just need to be a little bit less scared about it, right? Yeah. There's something about it that gets people freaked out. So TD and Citi asked what you wanted to see on CityLine today, and we heard you. So this week you wanted to see investing. What are the 3 most important things a beginner needs to know? And remember, go to the website at cityline.ca to vote on next week's segment and for your chance to win with TD. So let's get into investing. Let's talk about what it is and then why it is important.
Investing simply is buying an asset with the expectation or hope that it will either produce income or increase in value. That's what it is. So versus saving, which is putting money in a safe place so you'll have it when you need it, but you don't have an expectation that it will grow. So you could invest in mutual funds, stocks, bonds, real estate, art even. You can invest in lots of different things. That's the very simple version of the concept.
And why is it important? I mean, this is probably obvious, but you can give us a lot of reasons why it's important.
It's not obvious, because if it were really obvious, people would be more apt to get over their fear of it, because it's really important to make your money work for you. For a simple reason, it's called compound interest. And I'm going to demonstrate. I've brought my Monopoly money here. So we need money to work for us. So let's say we took $500 and we just saved it in a bank account and made 1%. That's all we made. So in year 1, $5, $5, $5, $5, and $5. By year 5, we would have $525, because that's what we saved. We earned just 1% on this pile. But what if we earned 7%, which is a great return? What if we were able to earn 7%? We'd still start with our $500, but then in year 1, instead of $5, we'd have another $35. And then we would start earning interest on our interest. In year 2, we'd have another $35. But that number starts to grow exponentially because it's interest on the interest. So year 3, $40. Year 4, $45. Year 5, $50. So now we've got $705 because we earn 7% instead of 1%. Now, I've got another example here. We'll look at a graphic that'll illustrate just how big an idea this is over time. Let's say you saved $500 a month every single month for 30 years. Here's what you'd have. $209,000, which might seem like a lot of money. That's a big commitment to save $500 a month. But what if that money earned 7%? If that compounded at 7%, take a look at this new total. It is a completely different world. It's actually a number that is $400,000 more, 610%. So if you invest your money and get a reasonably good rate of return, and that 7%, admittedly, is a good rate of return, what you have at the end of it is a whole other level of magnitude of money.
And now, if you are getting a 7% rate of return, does this mean you're investing fairly aggressively, or is this the norm?
It's not the norm. It's not the norm, but it would be investing in a mutual fund, perhaps, that invests in stocks. So bonds are a much more conservative place to invest your money than stocks, and you don't expect a 7% return there. 7% is over long periods of time. Some years it can be up 20%, some years it can be down 20% when you're talking about the stock market. But over long periods of time, it's not an unrealistic return.
Okay, so how do you decide then what you want to invest in? Because when you look at portfolios, that's the thing that's very confusing as well. You don't necessarily know where to park your money.
You don't, and most Canadians work with a financial advisor of some sort, not everybody. So if you're with them or you're on your own, there are 3 basic things that they'll consider, or you'll consider. Time, first of all. Do you need the money in 5 years or 25 years? Because that makes a big difference in terms of the level of risk you can take. Second is what's called risk tolerance, but it is both emotional and practical. So some people, if they're in mutual funds that focus on stocks, they can't sleep at night. So that is an emotional ability to take risk, but then there's a practical ability. So if you've got a pension that you can count on, it's less relevant in practical terms if your money doesn't do so well. The third is knowledge. So what do I know about investing affects what you should put your money in, because if you know nothing, you'll want to be more conservative. And if you're used to, trading stocks, you can be more focused on complicated things.
Okay, so what they always tell me at my bank is, since you're fairly young, you should actually be investing quite aggressively, which scares me.
Yeah.
So I would rather go on the conservative side because that's a personal thing.
Yes.
But then, of course, you're not making those great rates of
higher
returns.
risk equals is higher rate of return. So it's a balance here. And the other risk that people don't necessarily factor in is the risk of inflation. So if you say, I'm so conservative, I can't stand any risk, and you only earn 1% in your investments, inflation runs about 2%. So that money that you've got isn't keeping up with inflation. It'll be more challenging for you to buy a cup of coffee when you're retired because you didn't make your money work for you.
And just finally, why are people so nuts about it?
Aren't we nuts? We're nuts about investing. Everybody's kind of quietly going, no, I'm totally not nuts. I'm not nuts. I'm not nuts. We're nuts because it's scary, it's intimidating, and there's a lot of jargon. So there are two things I recommend people do. Ask. Ask a question. So if you were diagnosed with some sort of medical condition or someone in your family was, you would be less likely to hesitate to ask your doctor questions. You'd say, I need to know, what's this, what's this? We need to ask our financial advisors and the people around us and say, this is a totally dumb question, but I'm asking it anyway.
Right.
Second is to do some reading. And of course, I have a book, Moolah Law, Why Smart People Do Dumb Things.
Yes.
The other great book, classic book, is The Wealthy Barber Returns. Wealthy Barber Returns. So you can read it. Dave Chilton's funny and colloquial, and you can read it without being too intimidated.